Welcome everyone. We're starting a new book, Atomic Habits. Has anybody read the whole book? Beth?
A year ago, maybe.
Okay. All right. What made you read it?
I think you suggested it.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard about the book for a while and had read some summaries about it. I did not read it until this past early spring, late winter. Mike Delagarza, welcome. A little bit concerned how we can go through it. I mean, there's so much to learn. Everybody agree with that in this book? Okay. Paul Despain, look on his face. Yeah. Gary, you've started reading it. What are you thinking? What do you think about what the author says?
Oh, I'm very impressed with his wisdom and insight, with the exception of the evolutionary perspective. I think he's right on.
Yeah. Now, I think I sent out to everybody in a little bit of a summary, and my intention is that every week I'm going to send out some bullet points about what we discussed. Welcome, Tina. How you doing?
Thank you.
Hey. What I want us to be sure that we do is we consider what Clear is saying here. And Gary, I'm not, most of y'all know me, I'm nowhere near on the evolutionary side of things. I didn't remember that part about the book, but let's all be sure that we, if we judge anything he has to say in regards to the habits and such, that we're sure what we're judging. We're sure we're understanding what the author's saying. We've talked about this before. There's different reasons to read a book. One is entertainment. I read, a novel or two a month just for entertainment. I read a book like 15 Valuable Laws of Growth because I need to grow, and there's 15 laws that Maxwell claims, and read that book a dozen times over the last dozen, 9, 10, 11 years. But there's also a reason to there's sometimes just to gain some knowledge about history. Did that coming into the fourth. But there's also, if we're truly going to learn something, we have to set aside our judgment. We have to set aside what we think about what the author is saying. I had lunch with somebody last week, and he started giving me his opinion about something. He said, "How's things going?" We're talking a little bit, and I mentioned something, and he started giving me an opinion about it. Now, to begin with, I didn't ask him for his opinion, but number two, he had no experience in it. And I asked him, I said, "Tell me about your experience with this." "Oh, I don't have any. I'm just, this is what I think about it." So, I mean, some people have opinions, some people have experience. James Clear, this author, is claiming to have experience. And from the accolades and the references, and I would agree. And I need to adapt to some of his experience. So let's kind of get started. By the way, I have misplaced my book somewhere this weekend, so I'm on the Kindle version that's on the screen. So I am paying attention here. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to start off with anybody that started on the book, reading things. I know, Gary, you've got some insight already into reading, and he, he's got a story. Anything in the introduction, his story there, anybody want to comment on something that struck you?
I think from a writer's perspective of opening up a book to catch somebody's attention, the story about getting hit in the face or between the eyes with a baseball bat was very intriguing because it was first party, and then the climb back to normalcy. And, he's fairly modest about his playing abilities, and obviously he wasn't a big time player. He would have got a scholarship offer to one of the big conference schools, but the way he fought back. So he did a very good job portraying himself as a third-party reference and learning this aspect of developing great habits. I just thought it was a super way to open the book. It's memorable to read about a massive injury that it could have killed him. Not everybody has that experience. It took me back to when I was 16 years old and I flipped the Corvair. So I'm here today for God's will and not Chevrolet and Corvair.
Early, you got hauled off in a ball game with a crushing your jaw ball, didn't you? Yeah. So here on page 3, he says, how I learned about habits. Any comments there? And my screens are actually page 3. It might be a different page for some of you.
Hey, Danny, as an afterthought on Geary, anybody who's been through an injury has to pick up a process of habits to get better, and you have to stick to it, or you don't get better. So I could see where that could translate into the introduction, into how he started thinking into this process of getting these little small incremental bad behaviors in order, right? So anybody that's been through injuries understands it's a long process, and you have to stick to the process or you don't get better. So makes total sense.
Yeah, I have had somebody recently talking about something they bought us a subscription to. Then after 6 months, he's thinking, this doesn't work. Then he thought, okay, I better use it first before I cancel it, and start bad mouthing it. So he started using it, and that was 10 years ago. And it, again, some of these are judgmental statements in a good way, but he says here, how and why I wrote this book. When I read a book, I want to try to figure out why the author read it. And you know that a lot of times starting out a book, we'll go to the epilogue or the conclusion of the book, see what they have to say, and then back up. There's so much in this book. I think we'll end up doing that at some point. We'll stop and do that to help connect some things. But right now, just chosen not to do it. So I like his how and why I wrote this book, and then how this book will benefit you. He draws on the fields of biology, neuroscience, philosophy, psychology, and more. He said, what I'll offer you is the best commitments of the best ideas smart people figured out a long time ago, as well as the most compelling discovery scientists have made recently. My contribution, I hope, is to find the ideas that matter most, connect them in a way that is highly actionable. Anything wise in these pages, you should credit to the many experts who preceded me. Anything foolish, assume is error. Then he says that the backbone of this book is the 4-step model of habits: queuing something up, craving, response, and reward. And the 4 laws of behavior change, the behavior change that evolve out of these steps. So let's stop right here. Anybody want to speak into what you have any hope around what, if you've already thought of what this book might do for you, what you would like for it to do for you?
I'd like to see it maintain a higher level of energy and motivation. Perhaps some of those keys later in the book when he talks about how you can key a certain habit, you know, and he's talking about visual or even laundry list, checklist, all that kind of good stuff, because, you know, several of you know me, but I flipped the page January the 1st. And so I'm pretty much in a business startup. It's a vertical learning curve. Even though I didn't shift dramatically, I moved from sales support services to speaking training. And so I've got to refine my market, my message, get on target, develop a better database. There are a lot of different skill sets and things that I have got to do that I got lazy at them. I didn't have to do it, so I wasn't. So you know, I think it's a really good tool.
Very
I'll
good.
I'll piggyback on that because I started a new job in December and I have the same thing where I have to learn a different skill set from just being in sales. Now I'm in support staff and I've got different things to do. And I'll be honest, they're not habits yet. And it would be nice to create them into easy, good habits instead of breaking some bad habits I developed. So, yeah. I hadn't really thought about it yet. I've been just trying to keep my head above water for the first 6 months.
Yeah, I'm trying to move from, a big part of my day is spent doing support to my sales team, and also giving them some ideas and tidbits of some advice. And I see with myself, even I see so much that I do that takes motivation and or willpower, and both of those I know will let me down on a daily, hourly basis. So I need to develop some habits about a few things, and also which things. I'm trying to do more by doing less, doing more of what matters, and then what does matter. My wife asked me yesterday, "What are you thinking about?" We were driving somewhere, and I said, "Well, I'm thinking about what I really should, which tasks I should really do every day. What should I hone in on and forget about some other things?" You don't know that? So interesting conversation. So anybody else? Mike knows Kathy. He can see Kathy asking that. Scott, what are you thinking? I hear a little gerbil. It's just a running.
Well, I'm thinking I haven't committed to a goal in a long time. I haven't set a goal in a long time. And I used to be overly goal driven. And I gave up goals and just started focusing on, am I working on the right things at the right time? And so I'm really just pondering, is it time to set a goal again? As I'm starting a new job and, turning 50 this week. So, just a lot of transition in my life. The oldest one moved out, the middle one's done with high school and college. The youngest one, we just transitioned him to homeschool starting in 10th grade. We're going to homeschool the rest of high school. So, yeah, I'm just thinking about setting goals.
Well, you have a new job too.
Yeah.
You're on a new career path. Yeah.
And pondering to run for political office here right now. You know, if the right people show up to run along with me, then I will be headlong pursuing a run for school board for Leander ISD. That's a pretty specific goal.
I know some people that are sure hoping you do it.
Yeah, well, I'm just not going to do it by myself, but I had a lunch meeting on that today, and the PAC is meeting Wednesday night and Monday recruiting candidates. So if they can get 3 more to run 4, then yeah, I'll take that plan I wrote and we'll improve it and we'll start executing.
Good for you. Good for you. Anybody else want to speak into?
I will say this, while we were talking, I looked online, there's actually a workbook and a workbook / journal for this book. I'm listening to the book on audio. And so I'm going to order the workbook to just be intentional in my learning on this book. I also ordered the Clear Habit Journal, $26. I thought I'm just going to give it a try and see if that's a format that might work for me to help me reorganize and get consistently a new day than the day I'm having and have been having for, you know, last few years. The day and the week I've had for the last few years won't work to produce the results I need to produce in a new job and a potential run for office. So I have to re-engineer my day and my week. And if I successfully re-engineer my day and week, which will take a couple tweaks, right? It's a new product launch, so every new product needs tweaks. Then the month and the quarter and the year will take care of themselves.
There you go. Good, good stuff. Anybody else?
Well, I'm looking forward to making the tiny little changes that will produce habits that will in turn hopefully help me reach some of my goals. So, yeah, I just read I think I finished the first chapter, so it's exciting. And I actually read it years ago, but I guess I wasn't really in a place to hear it, or I don't know, it's too busy or something. So it's pretty much all new actually to me right now. And I'm looking forward and excited and realizing how important this one little decision that I make right now could change so many things down the line.
Really did. Great point. Let's all just go into what Tina just referred to, and they're starting off with part 1 of the book, the fundamentals, and chapter 1, the surprising power of atomic habits. And did anybody else get a little messed up about the name?
I did when I first read it.
Yeah, I thought
it was big. Yeah, I thought it meant huge. And I didn't realize it meant, molecularly speaking. So, and I understand he's got it both, that it's some very, very tiny, small change that will then give you explosive results eventually. I get that, but the name completely threw me when I first read it.
Atoms aren't that big.
I'm a virologist. I study viruses, so I know.
yeah,
It's like,
I'm thinking of the boom. I'm not thinking of the.
Yeah, the atomic bomb, right? Yep.
Okay,
He's
so
thinking
there's
subatomic. This is really small here. Yeah.
there's protons, neutrons, electrons, and then there's morons, right? So
Right.
I don't
love
want
that.
that virus.
Could you send that text, please?
Well, let's do something right now before we go any further. Where everybody kind of get loosen up here a little bit. Just give us your name and what business you're in, what your job title is, whatever you want to say. Let's start with Purdy.
So I am a marketing consultant, and I specifically try to stay within the YouTube arena to work with medium and small businesses with their video, understanding how they need to market their videos to get attention to an audience. So my tagline is, if you don't know Herdy, you don't know YouTube.
The Herdy does our YouTube class over at Impact Leadership. And he just had somebody came through that free class and they engaged him, and they in the previous ever many months, they've had, I mean, the previous 30 days, they had zero traffic just come to his website. And after 30 days of Herdy working with it, they had 6,000 hits last month. Is that right, Herdy? Yeah.
And 48 watch time hours in the last 28 days.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. John
Yeah.
Becker. Yeah.
John Becker, CPA, I do tax and for individuals and small businesses as well as small business consulting.
Gary.
Gary Seal, TrueKind Communications, and I help industrial distribution, manufacturing, and services sales teams with speaking training, sales training, and consulting.
Gary, I've got it was laying downstairs. I'm reading your book about your sales team book, and right now, good stuff. Paul Despain.
My name is Paul Despain, and I'm an insurance broker with Goosehead Insurance. We work with over 50 companies for auto and home insurance. And if your insurance is a pain, call Paul Despain.
Beth.
Beth, no, I live out in Spicewood. I'm on a contract with Amgen, and I'm a field reimbursement specialist. And they have a new drug for asthma called Tezspire for severe asthma. And it's my job to work with the clinics to get them through the hassle of the payers.
You've been in
Beth.
pharmaceutical sales for a while, right?
I spent 34 years in sales, which actually is a real help in this job because obviously I'm working with the sales team. So I have 6 AstraZeneca people and 3 Amgen people, and I have most of Texas without Dallas and Houston, but I've got Corpus, the Valley, El Paso, and the Panhandle, and I have all of New Mexico. But it's very specific to pulmonology and allergy, and they thought we'd be traveling about 80%, and I travel about 20% right now because just it's so much easier to get stuff done on the phone. But I'm been traveling a little because I don't want to be on a telemarketing team. I want to be out in the field.
Sure.
Yeah.
Beth, my oldest daughter is a PhD linguist for Amgen.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah,
Wow. Where does she work? In the home
well,
office? or-
she's remote here, so she's connected to California, India, and all over North America.
Wonderful. Yeah. I wonder if she could fix our hub.
All right, Scott
We are
Reese.
at
She's
We
not
are
the
at
IT side.
Yeah, we are at the mercy of the hub, which is, run by a third party, and Amgen contracts it. And that is actually, and then Deloitte runs the IT behind everything. It's multi-layered, very interesting. I'm learning a lot every single day.
Scott.
Hey, my name is Scott Reese. I'm in a new job. I'm in investor relations with a mid-cap construction company here in town, Courts and Construction. I help investors connect with above average market returns and below average market conditions. How'd that sound?
Good luck.
I just made it up.
Sounded good to me.
Paul, for you, I would like to get together and just look at insurance.
Yeah.
Which I haven't done in a long time, but across the boards. And then Herdy, for you, my challenge question for you is, how can a slate of candidates use YouTube to disrupt the normal political process in a period of, say, 3 or 4 months for a school board election?
Answer the top 10 questions the community really ask about what they expect from the school boards, and put them in short, concise videos and get them distributed out to your social footprint.
Cool. I may come back to you and ask you to say that again.
Mike.
This is recorded.
Mike Delagarza. I own Paradel Precision in Hutto, Texas. We're a machine shop I also am associated with KO Roofing. I'm a business partner with KO Roofing. I do real estate as well. And there's one more thing I forgot. I don't remember. There's a couple other things I do. I appreciate y'all inviting me for this. I have not got my book yet. I got the invite kind of late, and it says it's getting here by tomorrow or the next day. So I'm really interested in this.
Yeah.
When I saw Danny invited me, I was really excited. I haven't seen Danny for a while.
Yeah.
So
Good to see you again, Mike. Yeah.
yes, sir.
I actually had dinner with Rob Misto last night.
Oh wow, that's probably who gave you his opinion.
You're one of Rob's favorite people.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I
Tina.
appreciate this invite.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. Tina.
So I'm involved in real estate, mostly residential investing, long-term.
Tom.
Tom Barksley, CPA, virtual interval CFO, and I focus on cash flow planning for businesses, particularly fast growth. And it's a people business for me. So, it's been an interesting couple of years with COVID because businesses did exit COVID, if you will, stronger if they had a plan B, C, and D, because one didn't work. So enjoying that.
Very good. Welcome, everyone. So if you got a little bit of an idea, I'm also interested, I think everybody would be interested that as we go through this, and I don't know how long it's going to take us to go through it. My tendency is to go through it at a high level. And then anybody that wants to go deeper, we can talk about that. And we can do that in a smaller group of those that just want to go deeper. So as we go and you have any thoughts about it, you can tell the group, reach out to me, however you want to do that. If we go slow, we can tend to, it can become a bit tedious. The longest we've gone through everything, I think Gary was in that group back then, John Becker. There's about 10, 11 of us that went through. Well, for about 5 years, we had gone through a book every we'd go through about 5 books a year. And then we decided to pick up Think and Grow Rich. And to get past a couple little weird things in there, it's a good book. And it took us 48 or 49 weeks to go through that book. We went through it very slowly, and a couple of those that were in that have mentioned to me lately. It's about 3-4 years ago, John. We did that, at least 3. I think it was 17,
2 to 3, yeah, something like that.
17 or 18. And then
Yeah.
mentioned to me lately, a couple of guys want to go through it again. So don't know if I'm ready to spend 49 weeks on it. But so I might speed this up a little bit. So always try to stay a couple of chapters ahead of where we're at. There's some of this stuff we could get really bogged down in the atoms of it, if you will. So the surprising power of atomic habits, just starting off right there on that page, my screen that says page 12. That might not be it. I've got some notes here, but one thing she says is success is the product of daily habits, not once in a lifetime transformations. That means I'm not failing. Is that what that means? Sometimes I want it to be a lot quicker than that.
I think failure is part of this. What you do after you fail.
Yeah.
You can give up, or you can modify your behavior to develop that habit. I mean, someone said develop the good habits over the bad habits and have to undo that. So I think you're gonna fail.
I mean, that you are trying, right? If you keep failing, it means that you are trying. So
So Danny, I think the interesting question is, I'm trying to put on my pragmatic brain here, is to sit down with the piece of paper and really write down the things you think are bad habits, because we might not even think some of the things we're doing are bad habits at all. They might just be part of a routine that we're in that's now a habit, but we don't think it's destructive and hurting what we're trying to accomplish. If that makes sense.
Yep. Make perfect sense. So he tells a story here about this British cycling team, and that went from nothing to winning 60% of the gold medals available in the 2008 Olympic Games. And then 4 years later, set 9 Olympic records and 7 world records. During that 10-year span from 07 to 17, they won 178 world championships and 66 Olympic and Paralympic gold medals, and on and on. So how does this happen? How does a team previously ordinary athletes transform from world champions with tiny changes that at first glance would seem to have a modest difference at best? Why do small improvements accumulate into such remarkable results, and how can you replicate this approach in your own life? I'm reminded of when my son was at Lake Travis. He graduated in 2004 or 2005, but 2001 and 2 Lake Travis team went 1-19 those 2 years, won 1 out of 20 games. And the year Austin was a senior, they won 5. The next year, they won 8. Went to the playoffs. Went too deep in the playoffs. 4 years after that, they won their first of 5 in a row state championship. The difference was and this was a school that, for the most part, they thought a bunch of rich kids, no way they'd ever win. Okay, because there's a bunch of rich kids. After they won 5, after they started winning championships, of course, everybody said, "Well, they're rich. They've got all this money." But the real difference was that first coach. Now, he was only there for the first championship, but he did an incredible job. And I remember just so many little bitty things he started. He was so detailed, and so many people got upset with him, parents and coaches alike, about how focused he was on the smallest, tiniest things. Anyway, thought about that just now. And he goes on here, why small habits make a big difference. Pick out something there that the author says. Let's talk about it. Anybody?
One thing that stood out to me about that whole process is that they set a flag on a mountain, beyond what they thought they could achieve. And then they harnessed the creativity of the entire organization to achieve it one tiny step at a time. And that, the governing authority that hired that coach hired him with that in mind. They left him in charge long enough to make a difference. But it was an emergent, flag on a hill that was rallying everyone to one direction. They were pulling the rope together in 100 little ways, 1,000 little ways. And the creativity mindset that's there to continue to create a continuous improvement environment with a specific outcome in mind. Which is what's made me think, like, is it time for me to set a goal again? And how would that be different than, the environment in which I, left goals behind? And even more than that, it also reminds me of how, like, I don't know if you guys have read John Cotter's work, a PhD out of Harvard, but he wrote a lot about leadership. He's the leadership guy at Harvard for a couple decades. But he talked a lot about how the emergency room in a hospital operates at such a different efficiency level than every other department in the hospital, because they're dealing with an emergent goal every time a case walks in the door. Everyone rallies to the goal, and it's short term. It's got a specific end in mind, and then he taught organizations how to do that, how to set goals, how to set emergent needs for the organization that would rally everyone together in a project mindset. Those are some thoughts I had after this first section on the UK cycling team and how they turned that program around.
Scott, some of it just went through the book, the checklist manifesto, and a lot of it was written by a surgeon, and a lot of talk about emergency rooms, and he did some kind of part of some studies he did was involved with Harvard. So that's interesting to bring that up. Even that part there about they painted the inside of their van white, where I saw that. I remember that, but somewhere in there, they painted so they could notice dust. Really?
Something else regarding all the minuscule little changes is the morale of the team. When they think somebody's really interested in their welfare and them winning, then that's going to predicate a higher, deeper level of effort from the team versus a coach who is just sloppy, doesn't care. I've had it happen even way back in junior high. Bad coaches produce losing teams. Purdy? So yes.
Yes, and indeed.
Well, I guess one of the most famous coaches in that regard, John Wooden. At some point in time, if you're going to won 10 championships in 12 years, the players got to know the system works. They're picking up that, wait a minute, you're winning this many times nationally. That's pretty strong. It's not like he's just talking. So, but he was able to recruit people that actually bought into it from the very beginning. I think the challenge here is to get people to buy into this, because as a consultant, there we go. They call me coach.
Yeah,
there you go. As a consultant, no one reports to me in a public company when I'm in there. I'm not the boss of anybody, right? So if I can't show them how to change the tiny habit change will help them, they're going to go, you're not my boss. That's basically what they do. So, I've used this. This would interest me, but it does not have to be some, as it says, life-changing transformation for the first change. It is microscopic, but until they buy into that, they'll work and build it. They're kind of like, we've never done it like that before. And so they just sit there. And many times I was called as a consultant, like the SWAT team off the black helicopters, because the company was sick from the inside. That it wasn't working. They outgrew their systems and people weren't working, and it wasn't going to add to the success.
So Danny, I saw two things in that story. I saw both self-development and self-improvement, that they not only had to develop more skills within what they did, they also had to improve to get to the benchmarks that they needed on those goals they set. So I see those as two different things they had to accomplish.
Yeah. And John Wooden, when you came on his team, all the new players at the beginning of every season, these are top high school athletes that are coming in to play college ball. They know what they're doing, at least to a point. And he would personally take them into everybody else would be out on the court that first day. And he would have everyone come into the locker room, take off their shoes and socks, and show them how to put their socks and their shoes on correctly. And it had to do with not having blisters. And just, pulling the sock on, be sure it was the right size sock, the right size shoe. There's no creases in the sock. It was properly tight. It tight correctly. The lace was laced up correctly. So those little bitty things. So over in page 15, there's a diagram, 1% better every day. He talks there about the 1% isn't particularly notable. Sometimes isn't notable at all, noticeable at all, but it can be far more meaningful, especially in the long run. He jumps in and later, a few paragraphs later, when we repeat 1% errors day after day by replicating poor decisions, duplicating tiny mistakes. And I love this one. Don't you love this one? Rationalizing little excuses or small choices compound into toxic results. So if you, I don't think anybody here on here, but I have a check-in call available to anybody. You guys are welcome at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's meant to bookend. That's a bookend to my day. And I started. A few other people call in, check in. Here's what we're gonna do today. I have one at 4:30 for anybody that just wants to call in at that time of day, once a week, once however often or every day. And it's got one person that's really working on something that he needs to get done, be licensed in some other states in his field, and he needs to be stating that he's going to do it that day and focus on it that day. And he kept letting a lot of other things get in his way. Anyway, thought about that here, that I've got a couple of things I'm working through. Beth and I are big 12-week year people. So we divide everything up. Every 12 weeks is like a fourth quarter. And I started actually calling it a Q4 approach. And this is my 13th week where I take a week off. I look at my last 12 weeks, what I did right, what I did wrong, maybe how I was measuring some things wrong. It restates some goals, and I will start next Monday. And this book here has got me really looking at some little things, and I'm trying to do more by doing less projects, but do more of what I need to do. Or are you gonna say something? Oh, no. You're like leaning into. Yeah. What else do you see there in?
Hey, Danny, I was going to make a comment on the 12-week year, and I actually have this week as a break from Amgen. They take Christmas off and they take July 4th week off, and so it's turned out really well. But here's the thing: Scott was saying he needs maybe a goal. He hasn't been doing goals. But the thing about the 12-week year is it's vision. So you start with the vision, and that's what I'm revisiting. That's really hard to do. The vision of where you want to be first, and then the goals follow. And I just wanted to, that's the beauty of the 12-year part of it. And then how am I going to link up the habits to make that vision happen? It's cool thoughts this week.
Yep.
So Danny, maybe you can answer this. I've always been confused about this. So you always get asked, where are you going to be in 5 years? How can you answer that?
Well, part of it is that you can kind of go to what Scott's talking about goals, and John Maxwell says that you're going to choose. If you have to choose one over the other, you choose growth over goals. And I've had some knockdown drag outs with people about that. And but there are times you can't set any goals. You can't set something where you want to be in 5 years.
Yeah. I believe that one needs to, I hate to say should, need,
but one it should continue to grow and just work on their growth. And the vision will come about, the goals will come about. But if you stop growing, if you stop intentionally growing, you start sliding backwards. Yeah, I mean, you're going to change. It has to do with change. We're all going to change. You know, Gary went through the 12-week years with me 6, 7, 8 years ago. And, you know, I had around 100 people go through that in about a 15-month period through masterminds on that book. And I think I've mentioned this to something, maybe you guys recently, but I looked up and I thought, you know, most of the people that went through that book, all these, you know, the last year plus, were over 55 years old, and most were men. So I did a little survey, and those that came back, Gary summed it up for you know, for everybody. Well, at my age, I've figured out I'm not going to be able to retire, and I need to start growing. Something like that. Remember that, Gary?
And I don't want to.
Yeah, and it doesn't, Gary could retire when I'm talking about it, but it doesn't want to. I'm never going to retire.
No,
You know, I'm never going to. My mother is finally, really, Paul. She's really doing it this time. She's retiring. She has sold it, and it's done. But she's a farmer's agent up in Arkansas. She was 88 last week or week before last, on the 23rd, and she's finally retiring. And so I have no hope of ever retiring. So,
Well, 88's, I mean, you still got 20 years to work, more than 20 years to work at this point.
yeah, I'm going to break in 3 or 4 more grandkids into the mortgage business, huh? So let's jump over to. I mean, he's got some good stuff here that I hope everybody will spend as much time here as anybody wants to, but about your habits can compound for you or against you, the positive compounding, the negative compounding. He starts talking about progress, what it's really like. Got a couple examples in there of that. I love that one about the bamboo tree. I've read it over the years. Breakthrough moments are often the results of many previous actions. Pattern shows up everywhere. Cancer spends 80% of its life undetectable, and then it takes over the body in months. Bamboo can barely be seen for the first 5 years as it builds an extensive root system, and then grows to 90 feet within 6 weeks. You know, there's some other stuff there. Then he goes into the plateau. You know, what you think should happen, the valley of disappointment, what's actually happening. But you know, he's making a good case here. What he's trying to do is make the case that we need to pay attention to habits. I think we're all on here because we know habits are important. But then we go over into forget about goals. There you go, Scott. Forget about goals. Focus on systems instead. Think about that. Forget about goals. Focus on systems instead. You're a coach. Your goal might be to win a championship. Your system is where you recruit players, manage your assistant coaches, and conduct practice. Somebody, you start saying something, Hardy?
Well, I was going to say that in my business on when I work with clients from startup on YouTube, I have a system. I have a laid out strategic plan to sit down and work with them, from learning tools to actually being involved with the channel, from how clients think versus how they think, right? So I have this whole YouTube planning book that I go through with clients, whether they're new or oldies, it doesn't matter. We come up with a system that they can take over and teach them how to fish, and they can fish their own fish, but they have a system in place. So, and it took a while to develop because, you know, these guys make changes all the time. And you have to go back and change systems up depending on the changes that are made within the platform. So constant.
And your system works too. I know that. He says here, interesting question. Now for the interesting question. If you completely ignored your goals and focused only on your system, would you still succeed?
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a mortgage company, and in 5 years, we built it to a little over $500 million a year in business, and had 200 loan officers. But I never had a goal. And this really bothered some people. I never had a goal to fund 50 loans a month. I did, I'm sorry. I had a goal to fund 35 loans a month. And I was going to hire, if it 35 loan officers is what we were going to do. We had a real simple little system. We had a need that we felt we were filling. And but I never had a goal to do 50 or 100 or 250. But we had a system that just kept working, and till the 2008-9 debacle. But hadn't thought about that to right now. Reading this again, I've got it highlighted here on the screen from back in the summer or back in the fall or winter when I read this the first time. A good argument here about growth versus goals and systems. It says goals are good for setting a direction, but systems are best for making progress. A handful of problems arise when you spend too much time thinking about your goals and not enough about your systems. Mike can tell us all about that. So guys, let's just finish real quick here. It's really what time it was. So problem number one, winners and losers have the same goals. Problem two, achieving a goal is only monetary change. Proves three, goals restrict your happiness. Kind of an interesting thing. I'm gonna have to ponder that a little bit. I don't have anything highlighted in there. I'm gonna have to look at that. And goals are at odds with long-term progress. Then he talks about a system of habits. I'll send out a little bit of a summary, a few comments. Any final words from anybody?
Well, we're thinking along the same lines, because while you were talking about systems, goals, and systems, just before you said that, I'd written down like, what are outcome changes that I would like? And what do they mean to me? And I wrote down 5 things. Like 10 years from now, I'd like these things to be very different in my life than they are today. And then I started to write, what are the inputs for these results? Which is the system. What are the inputs to the result? And if you understand and then start to modify the system, then you can also figure out how to automate it and make these things more automatic, which is a form of intelligent outsourcing. To automate something is to come up with intelligent outsourcing of it. Whether you automate it to yourself or to your phone, your alarm on your phone, or a reminder on your calendar, or your kid, or your spouse takes it on, or whatever. A part-time admin takes it on. Automating these things and then being able to supervise the automation, I think, is where I'd like to get to on multiple areas in my life.
I think anybody can write a goal on a board or a piece of paper or whatever, but if there's no systems behind it, I mean, anybody, I can write, oh, we're going to write 1 million policies this year. Well, how am I going to get that way? Well, that's not going to happen anyway, but it's like you have to have ways to get to that point. Anybody, and there's so many times people write goals. Oh, this is my goal. This is my goal. That's like, how are you going to get there?
We were, Paul, I pick up on that. I think we were trained bad because a lot of us that grew up with jobs in corporations were asked to set forecast goals every year, and we didn't do it because we didn't care about the micromanagement. We just threw business cards and contacts at our sales manager and lied through our teeth about, we called on them, and that was our goal setting. So we looked good, but we didn't really set goals. So if that goals to me have always been, if you don't have a system or a strategy, then it doesn't do any good to talk about the word. That's just my opinion. I don't think I've ever really sat down and said, I'm going to do goals. I've just always said I need systems that work to keep me in the ball game with my clients. So
The one line in the section on the system of atomic habits I really like, he said, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
Yep.
wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Zig Ziglar. By the way, there's a couple of things in the chat. Be sure and take a look at that. Scott, you wanted Scott and Mike both said something there. So just look in the chat. You know, I heard Zig Ziglar say goals are in concrete, plans are in sand. And kind of falls in the face of the quote unquote smart goals and such. But it made me think about I had a goal last August. I set a goal last summer to run my first marathon. I had a 30-week plan leading up to it that didn't include COVID and kidney stones. Okay. And still tried to do it, didn't make it. So but I still have the goal to run my first marathon. I just reestablished the plan that started last week. And I got, call it plan. I got, systems and, and such. So I think I'm gonna like this book. I'm gonna like it better this time through it with you guys. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Thanks, everyone. Tina, welcome. Mike, welcome. Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions or anything, any comments? I'm always available via text and email. Go ahead, Herdy.
Danny, just to let everybody in the group know, when this is over, Danny's going to send me this and I'm going to convert it to audio and have the video version. If you go to Anchor, which is a podcast platform, and look up What About Books, Mastermind, Danny Smith, you'll find his podcast, but it's also on Apple and it's also on Google Podcast under What About Books. So if you type that in, there's a lot of those titles that you'll find this podcast, and you go back and listen to all the stuff we've done on past books and everything. So go subscribe. We're trying to get the numbers need to go up. I haven't really marketed for Danny, so go subscribe.
Yeah, and I've been talking about changing the name to In 5 Years, but Herdy won't let me yet. So, that comes, by the way, that In 5 Years comes from another Zig Ziglar, that we're going to be the same 5 years from now as we are now, except for people we hang around like you guys, what we read, what we listen to, and what we watch.
Did we hear that in another book thing where you asked about your daughter or somebody's daughter dating a guy, said, what's your 5-year plan? Was it, if you need to buy a car, you don't need her as a helper? It goes into religion kind of thing, right?
That was actually somebody else out there at DMS. I was out there about 4 years. Went out I was out there every week doing masterminds for 2 different groups of people out at DMS, and somebody used that in one of the groups. I don't remember who it was.
Yeah, I remember it though.
Yeah.
I use it in my personal life with my daughter and her fiance, who's now her husband. So, so it's funny.
That is funny. Good.
Yeah.
All right, guys. See you soon.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Thanks everybody.
Bye.